Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Welcome to yet another edition of the Pan-African Pyramid Show here at Fairway Hotel. We sit here every Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. and the recorded version with the same runs on NBS Television, our partner sponsor, on Saturday from 4 to 5 p.m. But don't remember to follow us on all our social media platforms. We're on YouTube channels, we're on Twitter, call it X, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram. Please remember to follow us. Just key in the word the Pan-African Pyramid for all those other social media platforms that I have already mentioned. Ladies and gentlemen, Senegal has been a valuable international partner for peace and democracy since its independence in 1960. One of the few nations in Africa that has never suffered a military coup. At home, Senegal has used its constitution, regular elections, and peaceful transfers of government authority to build a democracy rooted in a social consensus that respects communal and religious pluralism. To be sure, that democracy has remained a work in progress. Senegalese civic leaders warn that recent changes to election rules and politically motivated prosecutions of opposition leaders have constricted democratic competition. Senegal's people are among the most adamant in Africa in preferring democracy as their mode of governance. According to repeated surveys by the independent research group Afrobarometer, but most Senegalese say their democracy has been weakened in the past 5 years. Senegal's stability has grown only more important over recent years, in which desperate insurgencies and 8 armed coups around the Sahel region have spread violence and left 150 million people under military rule. A critical threat to African and international stability is a spread of violent crises from the Sahel, now the world's largest contiguous region of military rule, across the immensely more populous coastal West African states such as Senegal. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that in Senegal, the current president has actually extended the elections there by 10 months. That is President Macky Sall. And this and other, right now, innuendos happening in that country threaten the democracy that they've been building since 1960. Now we're asking, when you look at from Senegal, you see Niger, and we see those other, all the West African countries that have gone through coup d'etat. All those countries somehow belong to regional blocs or regional institutions. Our question is, are those institutions a thing of the past? And so to set the question very straight, from Senegal to Niger, political evolutions in West Africa, are democracy and regional institutions a thing of the past? Do they still see these institutions as important in the running day-to-day of their affairs in those respective countries, or we should as well close down those institutions and that money can build roads and hospitals?
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Today we're looking at the situation in West Africa. It's been a year now since West Africa is on the news for many reasons. A few months ago there were a coup in Nigeria. In the same months there were coups in Guinea, in Gabon, in Mali, in Burkina a few months before. So there were coups d'etat in a lot of those countries. And all of those countries were known as being like kind of democracy, what we can call like weak democracy, or what Achille Mbembe, a great like Cameroonese philosopher, called multi-party politics without democracy. So all of those countries had really strong democracy aspirations. And then suddenly in the space of like 1 year and a half, many coups d'etat happened. And new leadership came into power. And not only new leadership came into power, but the youth youth were happy about it. The youth in the street of Dakar, the youth in the street of Bamako, of Ouagadougou before, of Niamey, they were all really happy. They were happy that the new leadership is emerging. They were happy because they saw that a democratically elected leadership, and they saw that that democratically elected leadership was not delivering on its promise. It was never delivering for the youth. It was never giving back to its populations. And they saw a lot of corruption, so they said enough is enough. But who took power? The military leaders, right? So I think it's important we understand this. I'm really happy about this topic today because for me this is the end of a chapter of African history. And that's why I think we need to take a bit of distance right now. We're not just speaking of West Africa, we're speaking of the fact that West Africa is announcing the end of a really important chapters of political history from this continent. It's the end of the chapters that started in the 1990s. When did Ugandans start to speak of democracy, of elections? When did it start? Was it here at the time of Obote? Not so much. At the time of Obote, it was the one-party state that was supposedly ruling the nations. At the time of Amin, were there any sort of election or multi-party politics? Not really. Multi-party politics came in this continent in the 1990s, exactly like it came in Uganda. It was not a thing. It was not a thing. It came in 1990 as the result of the previous period. It was the first chapter of independence. The first 30 years of independence were mainly taken by strong rulers or one-party state, mainly one-party state. And that one-party state had developed the continent to a certain extent. But in the 1990s, if both of you are familiar with that part of the history, structural adjustment programs came. The IMF and the World Bank imposed structural adjustment program, which means that literally they start to take control of African states' finance. They told them where to spend their money, where not to spend their money. It started here with the government of Obote II, and then it started after that with Mr. Museveni. But those structural adjustment programs happened everywhere. And in that little package that the World Bank came with, that was really smelling really, really bad, they came with, oh, okay, also, you need to organize election. You need to have multi-party democracy. So you need to have this type of institutions that will allow some sort of change in leadership when the leadership is corrupt or the leadership is bad. Why are we here? We are here because of this flawed democracy process where multi-party politics has happened, but democracy, proper democracy, have never bring back sovereignty. At the contrary, what it did, this alliance of democracy and liberal reforms, what it did is that it gave much power to the economists, to people that were doing businesses, to people that came with companies. He moved the power from the hand of the people to the hand of the people with money. If you start to have money, then you become a big king. And that means like foreigners came to those countries and start to be really important people. West Africa is telling us something. The youth of West Africa have come to a conclusion, which is that this system of democracy with neoliberal politics, where we just called and ask for foreign investors to come and invest in our country, that does not work. That does not work. That's the message that they pass. And by looking at these questions of where are we in this moment, which historical moment are we in, we can see that we are in the head of that flawed democracy process. A new generation of leadership is emerging in Francophone Africa. I would like to ask all of you to go and listen to, for example, Captain Traoré of Burkina Faso, Assimi Goïta of Mali, Mr. Excellence Doumbouya of Guinea. All of them are new leadership. They're really young people. They're in their 40s. I'm not going to quote the one of Niger because I don't believe he's part of that generation. But all of that new generation of leadership is really interesting. We need to listen to them because that's what also like a lot of East African call for. East Africa is a really young region. A lot of people are tired to see people that are older and older staying in power or taking power. So what is it that we do? We do a sort of flawed democracy. They call it democracy, but the purpose of democracy is not there. Now come questions. In Senegal, we have seen that the people are asking also for Macky Sall to leave, as His Excellency Rumba just said. The youth have witnesses that the president is not willing to give power to whoever the people wants. There is that leaders, that's called Ousmane Sonko. I also try to follow what he says. It's really inspirational. He's been jailed. He's been jailed for rape, apparently. But what really happened is that the power in Senegal, President Macky Sall, tried to find a way to put him away of the elections. And that's what has happened since 1990. Any leaders in this continent that try to reach power via elections have failed. And so it's or they take them out, or they bribe them, or they kill them in certain countries. But what happened is that any sort of radical leadership cannot emerge. We have not seen radical leadership emerging from those elections and from democracy. We're looking, one of the last big radical leader that still believe in election is Mr. Malema of the Economic Freedom Fighters in South Africa. We will see. Maybe he will do things differently. Maybe he will prove us that democracy can bring radical change to the people. But so far what we have witnessed is mainly an elite that take control of the state and continue to stay in power by helping each other. I wanted for us to really understand that democracy is not wrong in a sense. Democracy is not something that is wrong in a sense. The problem is that economic forces have used it as a toy. So one of the big criticism, I believe, of the period that we are in is that fake idea that we are independent. We are not independent when our national bourgeoisie has no sovereignty to make choices. We are not independent when we have our own population, our own people, especially the youth, calling for a second independence. Many call for a second independence wave in West Africa. And that makes a lot of sense because French neocolonialism and Americans neocolonialism and other powers are playing on the ground. They're playing on the ground, and what they got is they reduce sovereignty. People are tired of this. People want their sovereignty back, and that's what West Africans are calling for. That's why it's really important we understand that both the institutions that regulate West Africa right now, we're thinking of ECOWAS, and the leadership in place that have been elected through those elections that are half fraudulent, half made with money from foreign powers, they are not delivering to the people, and the people call for a second wave of independence. And I think we should all look at them and think, what is it that we can learn from this? What is it that we can learn from this leadership? What is it that we can learn from those youth that have managed to change power and to reopen a new chapter of history, which I don't know how it's going to be written, but I know it's going to be written by the youth. Thank you so much.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Mr. Speaker, sir, Senegal is part of the French West Africa. It was colonized by France.
Mr. Safri here is representing them.
I'm not even sure that it is no longer being colonized by France. Senegal is a member of ECOWAS. For the last 49 years up to now, it is still a member. It is a unique country in the sense that it is one of the very few that has never experienced a coup.
Yes.
And that has got a lot to say about the politics of Senegal, because majority of the countries in French West Africa that have not experienced any coup mainly have been doing the bidding of the colonizer. So much, because the ones which directly refused the input of France, what happened to them has been constant destabilization politically and economically. And Senegal is currently being headed politically by Macky Sall. And his term of tenure has come to an end. But with the support of the parliament, have extended the next general elections for another 6 months, which has attracted an uproar from the opposition. The streets are burning, bullets are flying, water cannons at the minimum are being used. And generally speaking, the political economic atmosphere in Dakar is not as peaceful as we expected it to be. Of great importance, Mr. Speaker, also to note, is that what is unfortunately happening in Senegal is not something that has not happened in the rest of West Africa. We know for a fact that Arsene Ouattara tinkered with the constitution and he managed to get a third term, that is Ivory Coast. And the ECOWAS did nothing, virtually nothing. And we know that recently they were going to be used by France to attack the Niger until they were warned, especially by Nigeria, that it was going to be a blunder. And once the war starts, they do not know when it will end and what it will cost them. The same thing that is happening in Senegal also had happened actually in Ivory Coast under the watch of Arsene Ouattara, happened in Togo, it also happened in Chad. So some of these challenges we are talking about, I want the House to appreciate that they are not unique to certain countries, to just a given country called Senegal. What is of greatest importance, I think, and why the speaker pointed it out is because in the history, at least from the 1960s of Senegal, this kind of thing had not happened. Why is it happening now? In my opinion, I think two things may be happening. That it is not inherently within the African man to cling on to power, because we have seen world over that people, the leaders, cling on to power in one way or another. Those who don't do it, there are some democracies that have got inherent dictatorships within them, to the extent that we no longer see dictators. The opposite of dictatorship for the other dictatorships elsewhere, not on the African continent, are experienced in institutions, or I mean national institutions, conglomerates, businesses. They are the ones who dictate who is going to be in the White House. They are the ones who dictate and how the policies, the foreign policy of America is going to be. They are the ones who determine who is going to be in the president of France. The mobilization of the resources. Yes,
in America, they are dictating, they are determining who will be the president of France.
The president in the White House is a cartoon in as far as the multinationals of America are concerned. They are the ones who determine the foreign policy of America. And the moment you don't dance to the tunes, as long as, for instance, Trump does not resonate with the wishes of multinationals in as far as the oil industry of Venezuela is concerned, he is going to be ejected from the White House. This is what happens. All the coups, therefore, the point I'm making is that the coups that have happened in West Africa have been as a consequence of the leaders within the French West Africa not towing the line of the French. Where they suspect that you are going to be an impossibility, they will organize to overthrow you.
Hey.
Mr. Speaker, sir, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali, Niger, is not the first time that they have experienced the coups. The difference this time around is that the original and the constant sponsor of coups, who is France, in all these countries, this time around was caught with his pants down. And since the coups happened, they have reorganized other coups, but the media do not report some of these things. Question is, if these coups were organic and they were to get rid of the Frenchman with his neo-colonialism, and they have finally gotten rid of him, who is this other person now that is organizing the sub-coups within a major coup in Niger, in Guinea, in Burkina Faso, in Mali? Who is this person? It tells you that therefore the other person who was the original sponsor, who was overtaken by events and some coups happened and they are organic, this time around is trying to organize the other sub-coups to overthrow the original coup of the people. And we must be very, very careful. Mr. Speaker, sir, the external factor, in as far as all these political instabilities are concerned, including Senegal, must not be overlooked. Because, for instance, I will tell you that we have got the Transatlantic Pipeline, which is a major project mainly by Algeria. And it is to export, Algeria of course with other countries, but it is to export gas, natural gas to Europe. This pipeline is being fast-tracked mainly by Europe and America. They cannot influence what we are seeing, for instance, in the lifting of sanctions from the 3 countries that were hitherto sanctioned by ECOWAS. And this is in line with making sure that they can win the war, because they have got a very big problem whereby they cannot bypass the natural gas coming from Russia, which they must buy for their survival. They want to get a very quick alternative, and there is therefore a thinking that the external influence could have a mandate, because this pipeline goes through some of these countries that were sanctioned. And as such, therefore, it is very critical to have the 3 countries, the sanctions lifted, because I hope the House is aware that the sanctions have been lifted save for political sanctions. The trade, border, road, air embargo have all been lifted. A country like Niger was in tatters. Now it has gotten back some life. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Finally.
ECOWAS, democracy, a thing of the past. I want to state...
A thing of the past.
I want to state clearly that the same... let me start with democracy. Democracy is not organic. The democracy on the African continent is not organic. Actually, it was a thing of the past right from the start. But this time around, even when you have something not so good, but if you can hang on to it and probably brush it and make it a better product to serve your people, then you do go with it. I am at pains to believe what Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have constantly said when they were invited, for instance, at Africa-Russia Summit and the United Nations. They constantly made democracy their #1 enemy. I don't believe so. Their #1 enemy was France, and it was not democracy. They are using democracy as a scapegoat for purposes of wanting to stay perpetually in power, and that is a dilemma. Although I support them for having overthrown the people who were being used as conduits of siphoning resources of their respective countries, overthrowing the neocolonialism, I do not support them for wanting to cling on to power perpetually without transiting to democracy. Finally, the ECOWAS could have made strategic errors, especially by laying all her cards on the table without going piecemeal to administer some of the promises to these countries, such that they could, what we call, there is such a thing in international relations as holding your cards closer to your chest. They brought everything, declared economic embargo, trade zero, air embargo, and they had nothing. They emboldened these 3 countries to the extent of exiting the ECOWAS fraternity. I'm glad, however, that they have since realized their mistakes. They have come back, and I want to hope that the backdoor engagements they have had are going to yield fruits. I thank you.
Don't you think they are going to be weaker? The region is going to look at them as weaker. I'm talking about ECOWAS. Yesterday you had put sanctions on me. Today you have removed them without me even bargaining or even begging you. You simply say we have removed them. Do you still remain in the same position like
it will not happen, Mr. Speaker, sir, it will not happen that way. Reason being that we have had errant, when a parent disciplines a child, it is not to kill the child. We have had errant members before. Morocco got out of African Union, but it came back. There is hope, there is strength in coming together. Britain, shamelessly, a former colonizer, got out of European Union
EU.
after 70 years. I can bet to eat my rubber shoes, they will be coming back not more than 4 years from now. I thank you.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Today we have a very wonderful topic. What is the problem in West Africa? Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue is, what is disturbing, it's not leave away the issues of democracy. The topic is too expounded, democracy and regional institutions. The problem is that we need to identify neocolonialism. That is an issue. In what forms does it manifest? Through the co-protocracy. The co-protocracy through all these companies. So, but again, to define everything as neocolonial is also not right. That's why we need to exactly identify the agents and take them out. And what is the interest? Economic enclaves. These are economic links. I've always talked about it. Me, ladies and gentlemen, I want to put myself on record. I do not support the East African community.
Hey. You don't support togetherness?
Because here is my point. As Comrade Urgarama will talk about it. You know, Africans have a game called Mweso. You remember it?
Yes.
If you don't start it, you don't play it.
So are we in Mweso?
The same problem is what Uganda is. We're in a country which is in parliament exhibition, this exhibition, all these scandals of corruption and people taking money just like that. It is because of the foundation. Don't play what you don't start. So, this is an East African Imperial British Company Limited project that was joining companies with interest. In my part of Toro, we had tea, we had copper, major. Same as Kenya, and all these other parts in Uganda, in wherever places. Go read history. If you begin to read history, you will start to see how Angola sold so many cows to give to the British to go and fight World War II as money. Every place, this was a colonial project. So is West Africa for French. So is North Africa covered by the Arabs. So they're the ones who broke a peace in Sudan. And Egypt, if they have any problem, they call Saudi Arabia. If you have any problem in Francophone countries, you call France. If you have any problem in South Africa and East Africa, you call United Kingdom. Plus United States of America. Always comes behind. And they see it. So that is it. So
big
what,
boy. Finally.
So what we'll try to rectify our issues from this, we have two things, comrade, that I want to mention. Number one, the law. The law is a very powerful tool. Make it so hard. First of all, to put it on record, did you know that you, an African, for your brothers and sisters who go to China, they can live, work there for any time they want, but they can never become citizens in China? Another scam is called this Western citizenship. It's the greatest scam.
The Western citizenship.
This one where Mr. Irumba Katusabe, Comrade Irumba Katusabe, goes to the US or Canada and becomes a citizen. It's another big scam.
For UK?
It's another big scam.
Why?
Because it's...
Eh?
What is European about you?
Because it ushers a linkage of using you to continue to swindle African resources to their economies. Actually,
but we go there to work, we bring money home.
Let me tell you, there is a man in Egypt, is called Muhammad Ibrahim. He summarizes it as Mo Ibrahim. His concentration of his foundation is in human resource. In the entire world, Africa continent exports the most highest human resource than any other person.
Than any other country.
Trace with Ugandans who are in France how much money is returned to National Social Security Fund of Uganda and Uganda Revenue Authority as pay as you earn. 0. Their payee is paid to France.
Hey.
Their social security money, they don't get it.
Hey.
It is also retained by the other system.
Hey.
Because they don't get social security numbers unless you become a citizen. But these ones who have gone to work, they can't. But to appeal more, so if we strengthen our laws to say on citizenship, number 2, on these companies, we have a law, by the way, but this law is being overridden. If you are not a citizen of Uganda or you're foreigner, you cannot open up a company in Uganda and you take more than 49%. But if you manage to give some small money to the politicians, you will do. But where should our concentration be to avert this situation? Our concentration should be on the African Union, because that one is truly our project. The African Union was started as Organization of African Unity, started by the Pan-African movement, which Dan Rugarama heads.
Manipulated now. Because
they cannot,
because the headquarters,
no, my brother.
The headquarters in Ethiopia are built by Chinese.
Those were contractors. They cannot
Who paid them?
They can even pay. They can even pay. But what I'm telling you, they will not manipulate it because they did not start it.
Okay.
And if you follow all its projects, comrade, that we urge its people, it's working on the most important projects that first of all, it's currently working to implement the Yamoussoukro Declaration of a single airspace for Africa. Those days when you wanted to go to DRC, here in Kinshasa, from Kampala, you have to first travel to Egypt, Cairo, then your plane goes around that. That's why there was a lot of charges. You need to pay $3,000 for a flight.
I am in Kampala, I want to go to Kinshasa.
Yes.
I must first report to Cairo.
Or if you want to go to Kigali long ago, you have first to go to land in Nairobi.
Why?
So that's how they designed the airspace, their protocols, the routes. So those routes, because of time and cost, increases the prices. So not everyone can fly. And if you cannot fly, you can't do business. So you can't trade. You can't freely move. Now, introducing for us the laws of immigration. These ones where you want to cross and they say, you man, where are you from? Yet your grandfather has been in Karagwe, Tanzania here. Your second grandfather lived there and had a house. But you now, you cannot simply cross there. They will have to ask you questions, interrogate you, feel all this. So all these ones mechanisms. So
and yet we are saying we want one Africa.
Our concentration as Africa should be building a stronger African Union.
Thank you so much.
A stronger African Union will help us to overcome these coups, will help us to overcome the big external influence that is causing these changes in our continent.
Thank you so much.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
In analyzing the political events and the political evolutions in West Africa.
What is now dominating in Senegal? They want to copy Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso.
And whether democracy and regional institutions are...
should we still continue to pay allegiance, to give respect to them? You remember, these countries pay membership, and it's a lot of money.
Yes.
Yes, so why should we pay if they are not helping us to stabilize our countries?
Exactly. So whether they are a thing of a past tense issue or it is still relevant. Mr. Chair, we are very much aware that the political unrest by all standards, have suffocated democratic tenets and even regional institutions. Because we have regional institutions in place, but how relevant are they to contain the civil upheavals in West Africa? Because they are germinating day after day, country by country. Today is Niger, the following day is Senegal, the following day is Burkina Faso, you know,
it's Mali.
Equatorial Guinea. So
Now Senegal has started also
copying that virus of upheaval is going slowly.
The man has
investing.
extended the election by 6 months.
Exactly. Now that's where we need to know, because democracy and the operations of regional institutions are increasingly becoming the issue of past tense. Because we very much know that in Senegal, protests broke out last year in June. First of all, following the opposition leader, this man called Osman Sonko. You know, when he was convicted of, accused of corrupting the young people. And this was looked into as an issue that may lead to his disqualification for standing as a presidential candidate come 2024. Now, Senegal has never faced a military coup since 1960. And we are saying that of recent, Senegal has been thrown into crisis since the president attempted to push the February 25th elections till December, more than 6 months, as we've said. Now, by all standards, there's what we call constitutional coup attempt. Because what does the constitution of Senegal, what does it say when it relates to elections? Now, if someone influences the parliament to push elections more by 6 months up to December, that is already a constitutional coup attempt. And coups are not something new in West Africa. They said it germinated in Niger. It is spread over, the smell of the coup spread to other countries, Burkina Faso. We saw somewhere some members of the presidential guard stopped a certain sitting president and said, "Now, Mr. President, you are no longer president." Just like that. So I think violent protests that erupted after President Macky Sall postponed presidential elections by several months has created the democratic credentials and even tenets to be defiled. Because in this situation, the implication of this political upheavals in Senegal and Niger suggests that democracy, actually where it has reached, is in intensive care unit. Because it is no longer
ICU.
It is in ICU. And you know the implication of being in ICU. Death, protests, all of that. And that is why protesters are having issues with security forces. Now, what are the tenets of democracy?
Yes.
Are we following the right principles?
Let them be defined clearly.
Exactly.
We know the do's and the don'ts.
The don'ts. Now, if we are compromising the tenets of democracy, we have the constitution. You are not following the constitution. The constitution said election should be undertaken after 5 years. For you, once 5 years elapses, instead of conducting election, you say no, more 6 months in the floor, without even the power of the members of parliament. That means that what is being done is simply defiling the constitutional mandate of the people of either Senegal or Niger. So, Mr. Chair, in analyzing issues of democracy, I think Senegal need to sort out issues of the constitution. Senegal need to sort out issues of human rights, where democracy will not be the past tense issue. Because we need to move forward, allow democracy to function. The functionality of democracy will bring peace in those countries. Short of that, we are just heading to doom.
Thank you so much.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Talking about the coups that are happening in West Africa, are the people of West Africa happy about it? Yes, they are. Because if you're to start with, it say that most of these governments have been bad in terms of governance, in terms of administration. There has been something lacking. Our speakers who came earlier on were talking about the neo-colonialistic invasion in our leaders, in our people who are coming up to uproot these governments. Do they have the capitalistic mindset in them? When they are coming into power, are they coming to work for the people? Those are some of the questions that we would be asking ourselves. What do Africans want to start with? Why is it that when these people are overthrown of power, we have people in the streets jubilating? In Guinea, when President Alpha tried to change the constitution, polls showed that 8 of 10 citizens preferred that it shouldn't be changed and it should be a 2-term governance. And when he tried to change it to be a 3-term governance, the people were not happy about it. This shows that there was something lacking in governance. In Africa, I would say we are used to having kings, and these kings are there probably till they die. And these people don't come out to complain, meaning we as Africans wouldn't have a problem with the man staying in power. But the man in power, does he have the interests of Africans at heart?
Thank you very much.
So in conclusion, I would like to say that we groom our people to be more pan-Africanists than they are instilled with the capitalistic mindset. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Talking about the evolution, political evolution in West Africa, democracy and regional institutions, a thing of the past. You see, if Senegal is now benchmarking about countries like Niger, Burkina Faso, it's not a problem. The problem is you can come and benchmark on that, but are you really putting what across what is required as democracy? Because this the democracy, just a word, but it's not action to these countries, most of them. You can find that they're trying maybe to change the constitution, like, for example, the president of Senegal extending maybe the elections for next 6 months, and you find that is tickling around the what? Their constitution. So the thing is one, to make a conclusion, is just one. These presidents that come in, maybe they're tickling with the constitution, let them do the right thing, and when they're benchmarking, let them do the obvious thing that we expect.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Let's not confuse democracy with governance. For me, I think what Africans should adopt, it is rather governance based on people-centered ideas rather than democracy. Because if...
So those people don't want democracy?
For them, they are just fighting against that. I think that is their own problem.
Democracy,
the UN calls for democracy, I don't know, something like that. Gaddafi was attacked on the issues of democracy, that he has denied his people democracy. Often on a number of occasions, we always hear people talk about democracy.
Maybe the problem is the definition of the democracy that Western world is championing in Africa.
I don't know.
The type of democracy.
maybe that could be their case. But they should know that if democracy cuts across them, then they shouldn't dictate what should be happening in the other states of the world. So based on that, I would like to give some clear example, not far away from here. Let us use Libya as a case in point. If it is true that democracy was the way to go, tell me any country that has done the things that Gaddafi did. That is the question. Is there any European country that has free education? Is there any European country that has free medical care? Is there any European country, let's say America, because America now is championing, I don't know.
They are the headmasters of democracy in the world.
They tell us what to do and what we should not do. President Kagame was also saying, you take yourselves as if you know human rights. I don't know which kind of human rights you're championing. Yet you people, you came here and killed, because we can talk about King Leopold in DRC, killed 13 million people. Talk about America, it went to Iraq and did all it. It is even today supporting Israel. Israel today, 30,000 citizens of Hamas have died under the aegis of America. It is supporting them, but it is not said anywhere. Just because they are champions of human rights.
But they are championing democracy and human rights.
What kind of democracy? Because if we are to think for ourselves, free thinking, you sit down and you start meditating really. If these people we call next to godly, because we know right away from the start, these are the people who have brought the Bible, teaching us about God, doing what. So, today, 30 million people in Israel die under their aegis. I heard the other day, even the president of France, Macron, wants to take troops to Ukraine and call Third World War. It is okay. It is okay with him. If at the end of the day he thinks massive killing of people is democracy, as it is championed in the UN, then that is their way to go. But Mr. Speaker, what I want to say,
30 seconds.
Finally, but not least, if the president of Senegal has made a decision, and there is something that takes place in our people, we think that the parliament is at the forefront of all the citizens, and therefore it represents the ideas of the people. I think that is a very big mistake. Sometimes we can even elect fools to go in parliament. We shouldn't skip that. Yeah, it is okay.
Thank you so much, comrade.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Irumba Katusabe, your speaker, and I thank you so much for being part of this debate here. We come here every Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. and the entrance is absolutely free. You can also follow us on our social media platforms, the Spy Uganda, the Spy Television on YouTube channel, the Pan-African Pyramid on YouTube channel. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram and TikTok. I thank you so much. Please subscribe, share, comment and like all those debates that you see coming across our various platforms. I thank you.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.